Not one, not two. It's the show where you told you're not you. It's nothing in the middle, nothing in the middle, nothing in the middle, nothing in the middle of nothing. Hi, I'm Joey Lott, and welcome to the 10th episode of Nothing in the Middle. I was going to make a joke about this being a very special episode, but that wouldn't be funny. So, you can see that once again, framed by tiny sweaters. I think that's going to be a theme for a while. Never know about these things. Anything could happen, but seems like the tiny sweater frame has been here for a while, so we can expect that. And so let's get right to it. I've got some questions over here on the right, my right, your left, unless technology is doing something that baffles the mind, in which case my right might be your right. It says, once it is seen that there is no inherent meaning to be found anywhere, would there tend to be despondency initially? I wonder what your experience may have been. I know depression well, but it is cloudy rather than clear. So I'll take the first question, the middle question first, which is, or the second question, I guess it is. I wonder what your experience may have been. Which wasn't really a question, but it was phrased, written with a question mark, indicating that it's supposed to be a question. So that's an interesting one because I've actually had a few conversations recently in which it has become increasingly clear to me that there's absolutely no formula for any of life. And we tend to, the reason you watch this video, come on, tell the truth, is because you're hoping still that you're going to get it, whatever it is. And it is thought to be something special. And we may play mind games and say, no, it's not really something special. I know it's not special, it's ordinary. But the hope, really, secretly, is I'm going to get something special. And so the hope is that that through me revealing what my experience has been, which is just a story happening now, that's somehow going to help you get it. It's fine. Let's just tell the truth about it, though. Because if we can tell the truth about it and just kind of get it all out there, then we don't have to be deluded by it any longer. So the hope is that there's a formula, and if it's possible to follow that formula, then, maybe I'll get it too. But it doesn't really work that way. And so some of these conversations that I've had recently have been with people who have suddenly discovered that there's no control, there's no security, there's no separation. And you would think that would be, because most of us have been searching for that, and so we would imagine, oh, well, that would be fantastic. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes that can be really disturbing and scary. And for the same reason that most of us have failed to really let go in a lot of situations. So, my experience was, at least, that I heard the message in various ways, let go, or let go, I think, is the most common way to put it. I also express it in other ways, to relax, to soften. But the essential message that is being offered is that whatever is happening, you are that, and that there's no one outside of it to control it. But as long as there's belief that is indulged, that I'm outside of it and I can control it and it may harm me and I need to protect myself, then it reinforces this suffering, which is just the resistance to what cannot be resisted, because you are that. And so, you know, in a lot of situations we fail to do that. I say fail, it's a good enough word for now. I don't mean that in an accusatory way, I just mean it doesn't happen, right? There's not a clarity around the fact that letting go is already all that's happening, and that there's no possibility of being separate or defending yourself against what's happening, because you're that, right? So that seems to be what happens, and a lot of the time there's concurrent with that, there's this fear. And the fear is connected or tied up or identical to this discomfort. There's a physical discomfort. Because if you didn't experience physical discomfort, you wouldn't possibly have anything to complain about. So when there's something that's happening that seems like a problem, you just check and see there's physical discomfort. Has to be. But the physical discomfort is not actually the problem, it's the resistance. The physical discomfort is just what's happening. So is the resistance, but let's not try to make sense of that. If we try to analyze all of this too much, we get nowhere. So, not that there's anywhere to get, but it's useful just to take a look and see, is there discomfort, and does there seem to be some kind of volitional tension or resistance, or armoring is the way that I often describe it, because it's felt in the body that there's this armor. It's a tension that's in the body attempting to protect itself. And as long as that is indulged, then there will seem to be a problem. And so it becomes this vicious cycle of armoring. So there seems to be a problem, so I need to armor more. It reinforces the sense that there's a problem, so I definitely need to armor, which reinforces that there's a problem. So the invitation, what I'm suggesting is that it's possible to, let's say, stop that vicious cycle. And the way that I've found most useful is to do that at the point of the armoring, to soften the armoring, to let go of the physical tension. And what that will do is it will reveal the fear. It doesn't cause the fear, it just reveals the fear that's sort of metaphorically underneath the tension. And it's a fear, if you tell the truth, it's a fear of, I'm going to be destroyed, this is going to kill me. I'll be annihilated, no more me. But I have so much to live for. And that is, so there's this discomfort, which is the fear, which is the fear of annihilation. And we want to avoid that. Right? I mean, that's what we try and do. That's why you watch the video, right? Still hoping there's an escape from that. No matter how sophisticated we become. I mean, I've been there, done that. I'm not pointing fingers and saying bad you. I'm saying I know. I know what it's like to desperately try and avoid that discomfort and that fear. And I know how intense it can be, and I know how crazy making it can be, and how diluted it's possible to become. I spent years being paranoid that somebody was coming and tampering with my water or my food. The fear of being drugged is like this. It's my thing, right? It's the story. It's that particular form that the story has taken on in my life story, is this fear of being drugged. But at its heart, at the core of it, it's the same for all of us. It's this fear of annihilation, fear of being destroyed, fear of death, fear of vulnerability, fear of no control. And we try and avoid that. So I knew that my paranoia about people tampering with my water, I mean, I wasn't psychotic, so I knew that paranoia was crazy. But the intensity of the fear and the discomfort was so strong, and the conditioning, the reinforcement of that, gave it such intensity that I overlooked how absolutely insane that paranoia was. Now I was not a stupid person. I was fairly successful in certain realms. I had a lot of friends. I was well respected. I had a successful career. I made a fair amount of money. So I wasn't stupid, but the intensity of that fear was so great that I still would overlook the insanity of the paranoia, and I would try and solve the paranoia at the level of the story. So the fear would be, well, somebody has come and tampered with my water. And so I would entertain that for hours and hours and hours, deliberating. Should I get rid of the water? Should I keep the water? Should I get rid of the water? Should I keep the water? Should I get rid of the water? Should I keep the water? And that would go on, like I said, for hours. And as that would happen, the intensity would build and build and build, because I was attempting to contain life, which isn't going to happen. Not going to happen. No possibility. I mean, go ahead and try and find the boundaries of life. It's not going to happen. There are no boundaries. And there's no separation between you and that. You are life. You are boundless life. So who's going to contain it? But that's the level of intensity. It's primal. It's this primal fear of being destroyed. And so we'll go to great lengths to try and avoid it. I mean, I've shared a lot of my story, so many of you are familiar with it, but, think about the great lengths of starving myself for years, moving out of my home and living out of a van, and sleeping in the van in like 30 degrees below. And that's desperate. That's a really desperate attempt to try and avoid what ultimately we know can't be avoided, because it's who we are. That discomfort is not my discomfort that I can manage and control. I am the discomfort. And ironically, it's the attempt to manage it or control it that creates or gives the sense that there's a problem and creates further agitation. So I'm not big into, as you probably know, but I'm not really big into any particular, let's say, spiritual or religious philosophy, because they may be very useful stories and metaphors to help point to something, but when we take them to be real, then we can get further diluted. So I don't really endorse any of them, but let's just say that, there's this story of karma, which isn't true ultimately, but we can speak of karma as just like the fact that there's no control over what happens. And so karma is playing out. And the wisdom to take from that is just that. Karma is playing out. It will continue to play out. There's no escape from it. You are that. Not that it's predestined. If you just take a look right now, you can see there's nothing outside of this right now. There's no God that can organize it all. There's no time, so there's no before in which all could be planned out. There's just this happening right now. But what is happening right now is happening spontaneously and uncaused. And you are not separate from it to be able to control it. So the hope that many of us get deluded by is that by pursuing something that we've accepted as some kind of noble thing, which we call spirituality. By the way, it's bullshit. Really, it's just a story that does not actually have any reference in reality. There's no such thing. There's no spirit. There's just this. We don't need a spirit. We don't need anything beyond this. This is infinite. We don't need any way in which to magnify or glorify ourselves, nor do we need to fear being diminished. And both the experience of glorification and diminishment are allowed, because both experiences are happening as this unbounded nature that we are. So life is happening uncaused, and there's nobody outside of it to be affected by it, or to manage it, to be the victim of it, to be the recipient of it. You are that. You are this. This is all that is. And so the hope is that through spirituality, meditation, bhakti, or just any other form of superstition, it could be just, if I say the right prayer, or if I, snap my fingers at the right time, or if I blink my eyes at the right time, or whatever, any kind of superstition, we hope that that's going to somehow give us the get out of jail free card. Like, we will somehow no longer be bound by karma. But there's nobody to be bound by karma. You are the karma. You are what is happening. You are this. Nobody gets to escape from that, because there's nobody to escape from that, and there's nothing to which you can escape. There's just this which is happening. So oftentimes people will write to me and they clearly have this misunderstanding, which is they think that I have something that they don't, that I have something that they want, that I have something at all, which is not the truth. I don't have anything. Neither do you. Nobody has anything. There's nothing to have. Go ahead and try. Try and grasp at something. It's impossible. So, it's that hope for escape that is the delusion that is the suffering. That's the great irony, is that the only suffering is the belief that there's something else other than this that needs to be gotten or obtained or escaped into, but there's not. So what was the question? Right. So what is my experience? Or what was my experience? So as I said, there's no formula, and some people apparently have a hell of a time with this discovery, this insight into the nature of reality, because it's such a radical and dramatic shift that, you know, it's like, no thank you, I don't want that. Like I thought I was going to get to escape. Okay, so that's the hope. That's what we're hoping. We get involved in meditation, let's say, because sometimes that's what happens. I've heard that story a number of times. You know, people get involved in meditation and they take it up very intensely, and they're hoping, okay, this is going to give me the escape from all the shit that I don't want, and I'm going to get some really good stuff, like forever. I'm going to maintain that. But then, all of a sudden, there's this spontaneous and radical shift where it's clear that everything that was believed is not true. There is nothing to grasp. There is no truth to be had. And that is often terrifying. And what that points to is this primal fear. The fear of annihilation, the fear of being destroyed, the fear of not existing, the fear of not having control. And so my experience, apparently, I mean, it's only just a story, but the story goes that my experience was something much more gradual. There was no apparent clarity around anything. There was a great deal of delusion, despite the fact that I had been deep into a lot of this nonsense for a long time. I mean, a long time, that's relative, right? But for about a decade, I'd been pretty intensely seeking. So I had a lot of knowledge. And this is why, you know, I'm not big on knowledge or understanding, because it's useless, except that in some cases it can be reassuring once there's already been a seeing or a falling away. But otherwise, absolutely of no value whatsoever. I mean, at least it's not going to give you what you want. The knowledge is just another dead end. So I had a lot of knowledge and I thought I knew many things, but that was just more delusion. So there was suffering. There was a lot of suffering. But then there was apparently about a year of let's say intense looking, and as that intense looking occurred, no dramatic shifts, but over the course of the year, at some point at the end of that year, it just became evident that reality is this. There's nothing separate from it. But a lot of people mistake that. They misunderstand that. They think, oh, well, something really special happened to you. No, absolutely not. It was let's say, a process. I know that's not a popular notion in a lot of popular non-duality these days, but there was a process, apparently, of inquiry, of looking, of questioning, of meeting allowing, letting go. And that process seems to, again, this is just a story, but it seems to have gradually allowed for a meeting of that primal fear. So it's the difference between, like going to the water side, putting a finger in, putting a toe in, putting a foot in, just kind of easing into it, versus just plunging right in. So either way, there you are, but one way is a gentler approach. Nobody really gets to choose which one happens, but I would say if there was a possibility of a choice, I would want to choose the gradual way. But that's not the nature of our culture, I know, because that's not how I saw it before. I wanted something radical. I wanted something very violent, really, if I told the truth about it. Like this violent, radical shift in an instant. But be careful what you wish for. The reason that I advocate for just meeting us here, just letting go now, even just for a second, is because I think that's less likely to lead to psychosis. I had a conversation with somebody today, and he commented on how his recent experiences have given him great compassion for people who are institutionalized and otherwise marginalized and treated like shit because they don't conform to consensus reality. They don't fit neatly into that box. And he saw that there's a very, very, very fine line between peace, the discovery, the realization and clarity of peace, and schizophrenia. And he's probably right. So I would say, stop holding out for and wishing for this violent, radical shift. Instead, just meet what's here right now. Just let go right now. Just soften the armor for 1 second right now. Really, right now. That's all. And when you do that right now, is there a problem? So the other question was, would there tend to be despondency initially? And I would say it depends. So if there is a shock, then the tendency is probably going to be for a knee-jerk contraction, grasping for some kind of security, for some kind of stability, some kind of understanding. And one of the ways in which that can show up is despondency, I guess. The sense of, I still feel that I have a position, I still feel that I am somebody, but that I exist in a hostile world where I have to protect myself, but now I've seen that there is no hope of protection. There's no security. So it's still, let's say, an incomplete letting go, which would mean it's not letting go. But it's a subtle form of still grasping. So sometimes I speak with people who have that kind of partial clarity. Not really clarity, but we'll just use that term, partial clarity. Because there's still this grasping, because this primal fear is still running the show. But it's possible just to let go right now. And so, every conversation is unique. I don't have a general formula, but oftentimes I find that it's very valuable just to do a reality check, just to check right now. Whatever the fear is right now, whatever the discomfort is right now, nobody's actually lunging at me with a knife, even if it feels like that. It feels like life or death. But in reality, I can see, okay, no, I'm actually fairly safe right now, so it's going to be safe just as an experiment. Just let go. 1 second. Let it all happen as it does for 1 second. Don't try and control it. Don't grasp. Let go of the armor. Soften. And if it's not clearly and evidently true in this letting go, then you don't need to worry about it. It's all the other stuff that comes up. It's fine. Just let it be. So all kinds of experiences can happen. But you can always do that reality check and just see, is it true, the story about the experience? So the experience is primary. Experiencing is happening, right? Then the story is about it, what it all means. And you can check to see, is that true? Do I know that that story is the truth? No. Because in an instant, right now, just let go, and then you see, what problem? What's wrong with right now? Okay, next question. It says, when I was with Free John, I experienced his transmission. He implied that his transmission was higher than, better than, the Shakti transmission of his teacher Muktananda. Since his was the only transmission I had experienced, I believed that it was true. It certainly was like a tidal wave of light, but later I experienced spirit baptism in a charismatic Christian church, and darned if it wasn't the same essential Shakti, except now it was labeled Holy Ghost. My question is, what's going on? Seems like the autonomous God is the one who decides who gets to be transmitter. Or is there something technical that these guys do that allows the zap to happen? So I actually had an email exchange with this emailer about this, and he sent me some transcriptions of some talks that then Baba Free John, later Adida Samraj, the avatar, some talks that he gave in 1976, and damn, they were very, very, very clear. And nonetheless, the guy was a swindler. He was a showman. He was working the crowd. And many people do it, and they either know they're doing it or they don't know they're doing it. I'm not claiming that everybody who does it knows that they're doing it. Many people who do it are deluded. But it's a big red flag whenever anybody claims that what they're doing is special, or they claim that they are special in some way. Somebody claims that you have to worship him in order to obtain something very special for yourself. Not true. And so there's some people who are just very talented at working a crowd. They know how to do it, and they either know that they know how to do it or they don't know. They, like I said, they could be as deluded as anybody else, but they've just somehow lucked into the insights for how to manipulate a crowd. I mean, Darren Brown actually has did a couple of he has a couple of clips on YouTube that I saw some time ago that are very good at revealing how what can seem like tremendous magic and special powers is just a very, very talented person who knows how to work people in that way. And some people will see that as cynicism, you know what I'm saying? They'll see that as cynicism, or they'll say that it's an attempt to dispel the magic. But I don't see that as the case. In fact, I see that life itself is magical. Total mystery. But it's a joyous mystery. And it's a mystery that's free for everyone. Nobody has a monopoly on it. Nobody can charge admission to it. Nobody can deny it to you. You are it. And so anybody who uses spells, let's say, they're spells, they're little tricks that people have. Anybody who uses those tricks to further delude people or to try and draw power to themselves, you don't need that. Not at all. And honestly, I don't have a lot of patience for so-called spiritual teachers who are who perpetuate those sorts of things, because I see it as dishonest and harmful. And I say that because I have met people who lived at their, in these spiritual communities or in ashrams with well-known teachers, and literally sometimes decades later are still hypnotized, and in a painful way, by the behaviors of those so-called gurus. That's antithetical to what I feel that somebody who is truly trying to help another would want to do. So those people, in my view, should just be avoided. Even if there's wisdom in what they have to say, sometimes it's mixed up with too much other garbage. With that said, some of these transcripts of the 76 talks by Free John are, like I said, pretty good. So I may post some snippets on my blog at some point. But sometimes the message is very good, but the messenger is not. So, okay, next question. I've been watching your videos in which you say that there is only the present moment and you cannot get away from it. But isn't it true that really thoughts have a nocebo effect on a person? That's what scientists are agreeing on, and that you have a choice to react a certain way to a thought, which may make the moment of the thought shorter, maybe a fraction of a second, which means that the thought becomes harmless because it has no nocebo effect on your body. I don't see the point in accepting anxiety and tension as it is because I don't have to. I wish you would make another video and answer this question. So the nocebo effect, it's the if I remember correctly, it's like the cousin of the placebo effect. So the placebo effect is give somebody a sugar pill, you tell them that it's heroin and morphine, and the person experiences pain relief as a result. The nocebo effect is when you, if I have it correct, then the same sort of scenario. You sugar pill that you give to somebody and tell them that it's morphine, but the person experiences the harmful side effects. So the idea being the thought, in this email, if I understand correctly, the idea is that thought can be harmful or helpful, which is fine. I don't necessarily need to argue with that. It's not my experience of it. I see that thought is secondary. Thought is an attempt to try and tell a story about what's already happened. I don't think the thought precedes anything. But thought can, the attention to thought and the attempt to try and solve the puzzles in thought can reinforce a vicious cycle. That I would say seems to be true. And that's why I advocate for giving no particular attention to thought. Allow the thought. In some cases it can be therapeutic to intentionally encourage the thought, the troublesome thoughts in particular. That's why I think the affirmations are generally pretty stupid because I think they tend to reinforce that some things are good and other things are bad, and so it reinforces the vicious cycle of trying to avoid unpleasant feelings or discomfort, which then get associated with particular thoughts. So we try to avoid the thoughts, but the thoughts are happening. The more that we try to avoid them, the more discomfort there is. So I actually think that it can be therapeutic to intentionally think, if that's possible, the thoughts that you would rather avoid. That's going to be different for every person, but there really is heroin in my water. Somebody really did sneak in here and put heroin in my water. That kind of thing. That would have been very troublesome to me at one point. But it was the avoidance of that kept the whole cycle in place. So intentionally giving attention and thinking unwanted thoughts can be therapeutic, but only in that it can help to loosen and reverse that vicious cycle, which ultimately it's not about the thought, it's about the attempt to avoid the discomfort. And I often do a little exercise with people. I'll share it with you now. So think of a thought that is disturbing to you. If no thoughts are ever disturbing to you, and that's the truth, then you don't need this exercise. But most of the time, people have this idea that thoughts are a problem. There are certain thoughts that are problematic, certain thoughts that are troublesome. So just pick one thought that is troublesome to you, and now think that thought and notice that it's troublesome, or not. I don't know, but maybe it's troublesome. And then just let go for a moment. Let everything go. You don't need to give any attention to anything. Just feel the tension softening in the body. Let everything go. Relax the hands, the feet, the forehead, shoulders, jaw. Now, remain relaxed. So that's the main thing you want to do here, is just maintain that relaxation. Don't stress about it. But just gently remain relaxed. And as you remain relaxed, I want you to think that thought. Now, if you truly remain relaxed, thinking the thought, which you may have to slow down in order to think it in a relaxed fashion, whatever, just find a way to think the thought, say those words to yourself while remaining relaxed. And if you do that, unless you're the exception, you'll notice that the thought is not a problem. So thoughts are not problems. Can't be. Just words, just movements, just energy. Not a problem. It's the discomfort that we attempt to avoid that seems to be a problem. So, if you can think the thought and remain relaxed, or even think the thought and then relax, and then think the thought, and even if it is disturbing and creates tension in the body, but then just let it all go, relax, and then think the thought and feel the tension and then relax. At some point, you'll discover that the thought is not causing any more problems, and no matter how hard you try, in fact, the harder you try, the less of a problem it becomes. In fact, it may even become comical. Don't force that. Just try and make it a problem until you discover it's not. Can't be. It's just words. That's it. Next question. I see on an intellectual level, assuming there is such a thing, that there is no separate me to experience feelings, thoughts, etc., but that there are only phenomena arising and disappearing spontaneously. But this awareness also comes and goes, as does the sense of solidity of self. My seeking seems to have brought this much. Right. So, if you say that something comes and goes, then it's really not worth giving much attention to. Or, the attention may go to it, but there's this, when it's really seen that everything is happening for no one, uncaused, no history, no past, no meaning, what's the problem? It's quite nice. So anything, so the thing here is, it says that seen, sometimes it's seen that things are only arising and disappearing spontaneously, but the awareness of that comes and goes. So it reveals that there's still some idea that the particular experience of seeing that phenomena are arising and disappearing spontaneously is somehow important. And that is actually, it's not about the understanding. If you take a look, you'll see that in those moments there's a release of the contraction, which is the armoring, which is that sense of having to protect yourself, guarding yourself, keeping yourself from being destroyed. So there are moments where that doesn't seem to be the case. But that's not important. Because contraction comes and goes. Thoughts come and go. Sensations come and go. Insights come and go. There's no one thing that needs to be held on to. There's no one to hold on to it. The insight, the core insight, let's say, is just, I am this. I am what is happening. That's not something you'll understand, but that's something that's apparent. Doesn't require anything whatsoever. You can see that right now. Don't try to understand it, just let go. And then that's obvious. Hard to really give a satisfying response to this. But I think the reason that it's difficult to give a satisfying response is because there's still, the inquiry here still reveals that there's a search for some kind of satisfaction. Whereas life is open-ended. Life is, like I often say, it's unbounded. That's the nature of freedom. There's no bounds. It's not defined. So if you're looking for an answer, forget about it. Don't look for an answer, though. The question is lovely. The question, life is the question. Life is just this. Totally open-ended. My main question concerns the armoring. I believe it may well be the crux of my inquiry now. I am very aware of its presence in my body. It is so long-standing in my case, having been in place since I was very young, that I am not sure I can recognize its depth, its extent, or, by extension, its absence. It seems logical to conclude from what you say below and from my experience that the armoring and the coming and going of the awareness are intimately connected as part of the same process. I don't know if this is the same person or not. I don't remember. So I think the next part of this is from the same person. Do we have full conscious control of this softening? How can I recognize true softening when I am not sure of the degree to which I am armored? I'm pretty sure this is the same person because this is the essence of this is the same. Okay, so still looking for some kind of certainty. How will I know? But you won't know. Doubts may persist, but the doubts don't need to be given any particular importance. You can just let go now. So, it says, how can I recognize true softening when I am not sure of the degree to which I am armored? And I often say there's no end to letting go. So we often have, at least I had things totally backward. I thought that what I was looking for, the goal that I had in mind, was total absence of any kind of disturbance. No doubt, no unpleasantness, no pain, no fear. And I was trying to get away from uncertainty, insecurity, instability, vulnerability. But you see, I had it totally reversed. What I was pursuing, what I thought I was pursuing, actually that's death. It's like the death wish. Just want nothing to be happening. But that's not really what we want. We want life. But guess what? This is life. Life is already happening. Life is paranoia that somebody's coming in and tampering with my water. Who knew? Really? It's pretty cool. Because I don't have to change anything. I don't have to get rid of anything. This is it. So you say you don't know the degree or the extent of the armoring. Yeah, no, there is none. There's no extent to it. Just keep letting go. How will you know when you've reached true softening? No, forget about it. No such thing exists. You're thinking in very absolute terms. It's either armoring or softening. No, one thing, one non-thing is armoring, softening. I mean, how could you have softening if there's no armoring? How could you have armoring if there's no softening? Just soften, just let go. Any attempt to try and understand it or define it, measure your progress, is not helpful. That's just another way of trying to protect yourself. More armoring. So you just let go. And the joy is letting go. It's not arriving at some point of true softening. No. It's the letting go. It's the softening itself. Right now, this is it. Don't try to arrive somewhere. Just let go now. So the rest of the questions are very similar to that from this person, but there's one that says, and is the sense of sweetness, innocence I experience on occasion a glimpse or foretaste of what remains when we truly let go? The innocence of a child, which the armoring denies. No idea about it is going to be helpful. So it may be that there's a glimpse of this innocence, total vulnerability. But as soon as we think about it and ask about it and answer about it and talk about it, think about it some more, we're overlooking that it's possible just to let go right now. Without an agenda, without trying to get innocence. Forget about it. Just let what happens, happens. Totally, all of that is totally uncaused. You don't get to control it. So letting go, don't turn letting go into a strategy to get that. Just let go. Okay. Right. So this question says, I must ask if questions or doubts arise for you now. So I have to respond to the exact question. No, because nothing happens for anyone. With that said, of course, anything can happen. So if I said, questions or doubts? If I say no questions or doubts ever happen for me, then what does that mean? That means you're going to hear that and you'll say, oh, well, that means that something very special has happened for him and now he's very special. I need to do something so I can get to where he's at, so that then I'll no longer have thoughts or doubts, and I'll be able to measure my progress by how many thoughts or doubts or questions I have. That's a huge, huge, huge distraction. Don't go down that path. No. Questions and doubts are perfectly allowed. They're allowed just the same as anything else. What's not allowed? That's maybe an interesting exploration. What is not allowed? Is there anything that's not allowed? Tell the truth about it and you'll see there's a whole long list of stuff that's not allowed. But why? Is it really not allowed? Or is that just a story about it? What would be wrong or problematic about questions or doubts? I don't see anything that's problematic about them. Who cares? It's a party, come along. Questions and doubts are allowed at the party. You know, if we start to say that certain things are not allowed, then, I don't know, that starts to sound very suspect to me. That's a bit like, yeah, I don't know, you know, I mean, that like we've seen enough of that in history. You know, you're not allowed because of what? Your religion, your gender, your sex, your color, your nationality, your height, I mean, on and on and on. But hopefully we've started to recognize how stupid that is. Right? I mean, hopefully we know that that's totally stupid. We're going to exclude people based on these arbitrary characteristics. So then we're going to exclude certain types of thoughts, certain types of energies, certain types of impulses, certain types of sensations, just because of these arbitrary qualities that they seem to exhibit? No. Then we've got to hire a whole bunch of bodyguards. And then we'll be anxious all the time because maybe the questions and doubts are going to try to assassinate us because they hate us because we're keeping them out of the party. It's way too stressful. Everyone is allowed at the party. I'm not the dictator of the party. Who wants to be the dictator of the party? That sounds like a really shitty party. Everybody is welcome at this party. Okay. I don't know if that was... No, there's more. What do you think about Theravada Buddhism and their notion of nirvana? They describe it as the cessation or the experience of non-experience. Like a flash moment consciousness... Like for a flash moment, consciousness does not take the aggregates, the senses, as an object. You should experience nothingness, but according to them, this is the genius discovery of the Buddha. It is not nothing. In the absence of the five senses, including the mind, there remains something, nirvana. According to them, this is the experience of enlightenment. Well, it's true that I mean, go ahead and see if you can find nothing. I mean, it's true that that from a certain perspective we can say that there's nothing, or that it's empty. I say that. It's useful. It's a very useful pointer to inquire and take a look and see that what we thought the thing was, it is not. Couldn't be. No such thing exists. There is no thing there. But just because there's no thing there, just because the thing that we imagined to be there is not there as we imagined it, does not mean that there is nothing, again, as we imagine nothing to be. The trouble here is only just that we think we know. But when you recognize that you don't know, it's so simple. There's no need to understand it because it's obvious, inescapable. Whether I call it a thing or nothing does not change the nature of reality as it is. The nature of reality is this. It's totally inescapable. You are this. Already the case. And the thoughts and the story and the understanding are also this. So, if we just for a moment drop the attempt to understand, which is just another way of trying to protect this this sense of being something separate. Just drop it for a moment, just 1 second. Then it's obvious, isn't it? I mean, there's nothing as we've imagined it, and yet there's this. We're not going to deny that this is, but we don't know what it is. So we say it's nothing, which is true, from the perspective of things. If we say it has to be either a thing or nothing, then clearly it's not things. But it's maybe more truthful to say it's neither thing nor nothing. It's just this, which is obvious. But you'll never understand it. It's impossible to understand because the nature of all understanding is that it is comparative. So we have to separate night into day, or night and day, right? In order to have either. Otherwise, we can't speak of day without night. We can't speak of night without day. I mean, they have to be separated in order for either one to exist. So that's the nature of all understanding and all thought, is that it has to separate that which is not actually separable. So we get confused, and so the thing that I'm not a Buddhist scholar. I don't know a whole lot about it, but from the little bit that I have investigated, it seems to me like there's a great deal of wisdom there. Great deal of wisdom. I mean, I've heard some stuff the Dalai Lama has said, and I thought, wow, brilliant. Seems to have some really very clear insights. But it complicates things at the same time. Because if we're trying to understand it, forget about it. So they're useful pointers, but if you think that you've understood it, then you're deluded. Don't. I don't understand. Nobody understands. Understanding is not possible. Okay. If I stub my toe, I holler in pain, but you only see me hop. If you stub your toe, you feel pain, but I do not. These seeming reference points allude to separate identities. How is this seeming duality reconciled in non-duality? The only reconciliation I see falls on solipsism, which I have heard is a no-no in most non-duality teachings. I made a note to myself about what how solipsism is defined, because I don't know. People ask me about these things and then I forget. So I looked it up, and the definition that I found was, only the self can be known. Okay. So, it says, these seeming reference points allude to separate identities. Because if I stub my toe, I holler in pain. If you stub your toe, you feel pain, but I do not. Right. But the truth of the matter is that those are stories. So I say, I stub my toe, I feel pain, but if you stub your toe, you feel pain, but I do not. But I don't know that. I don't know any of that. I don't know anything. It's just a story. There's what's happening, which is obvious and doesn't have, that is not understandable. But that doesn't mean it's hidden. Just to be really clear about that. I mean, so do you have to have a story about pain in order for there to be the clarity of that experience? I mean, the experience itself is immediate. If you were I mean, it's a hypothetical question, obviously, but do you imagine that if you were pre-verbal, you would not be able to experience pain just because you don't have the ability to have a narrative about it? But so the question is, how do I reconcile this duality? I don't. There's no duality to reconcile. There's just what's happening. It's not happening for anyone. So the experience is not somebody's experience. It's not my experience. That's a story about it. Pain, if we want to call it that, it's not pain, but just to be able to speak about it. We'll say there's this experience that's called pain. That experience, pain, is not my pain. Now, this is not some sort of philosophical loophole. If you try and understand this and take it on as philosophy, it's garbage, so forget about that. I'm just saying that if you look to the actuality of what really truly is experienced or what happens, you'll see that there's no way to know that this is my experience. There's no other experience to compare it to, so that I can say this is my experience and there's another experience that is somebody else's experience. So this is why I have often said that the self, the separate self, the one that seems to be the owner of the experience or the experiencer, is an inference based solely on the concept or the idea that it's my experience. But there's no evidence of that. I mean, it becomes circular. You say it's my experience because I feel it. How do you know that you feel it? There's feeling happening. And again, if you take this on as a philosophy, it's useless. So don't do it. Don't waste your time. But just take a look and see directly for yourself. Not as something to understand that you can then remind yourself of, not to build up a new structure, but just so that just to take a look and see. It can be very freeing, very liberating to realize that all of your ideas about everything are unprovable. There's just what's happening. So how does that differ from solipsism? I don't know. I don't have any need to be to differentiate my experience from any description of a philosophy. Because I'm not talking about a philosophy. I'm just talking about the actual experience. I mean, if you want a philosophy, go talk to a philosopher. They're better. They're good philosophers. They know philosophy much better than I do. I don't know much about philosophy. But if solipsism is defined as only the self can be known, I would say that I wouldn't know what that means. I don't think there is a self, or that anything can be known. I say I'll take the shortcut. I'll just go with what is undoubtable. Ain't much that you can't doubt. So if we just look at what can be known, or maybe known is not the right word here, but what can about which you can't have any doubt. Well, the only thing that we can say without doubt is this is happening. I don't know what this is. I don't know what is means, and I don't know what happening means, but I can definitely say this is happening. And if I explore this, then I find no boundaries in it. So I can't find that I am separate from this. I don't find any boundaries. There's no separation to be found. I mean, I've looked. You can look. See what you find. See if you can find the boundaries or the separation. I doubt you can, but if you just take my word for it, Yeah, it just becomes a philosophy. So take a look, see. Alright, last one. I get confused about statements or discussions revolving around the relationship between awareness and the object of awareness. We hear, you are not the body, mind, and you are not a thing. Then we hear, you are the objects, or put another way, nirvana is samsara, or emptiness is form, and form is emptiness. This seems to be a contradiction in terms. How can we be both objects and non-objects? It's more of an attempt to try and understand something rather than just looking directly at what's actually happening. So all the attempts to understand are still a way to try and protect yourself. But have you actually looked to see what needs to be protected? So I'm not an object, or I am an object. Either way, if there's a grasping for an understanding of that, then there's this sense of, I need to define myself. Why? Only possibility is because I need to protect myself. But take a look and see, why do you need to be protected? What is it that needs to be protected? Where are the boundaries of this thing that needs to be protected? What is it that can harm or destroy this? So we have to maybe, there's a seeming paradox of I as this person, I'm going to die. Probably. It seems to happen. And I can, be harmed or injured. So there's that, and then there's the fact that I have no idea what I am. I cannot be defined. I can't find the definition. I can't find the beginning or the end. I can't find anything outside of this. And actually, either way you look at it, it's total vulnerability and total insecurity. There's no way to define anything and protect anything in any real meaningful way. I mean, I could build a fortress around myself, like 20 feet of reinforced concrete and underground bunker and all kinds of stuff, but doesn't offer real security. I mean, we all know that at any moment anything could happen. I mean, you could drop dead of a heart attack, aliens could come and attack, asteroid could smash into the planet, airplane could crash into your house, psychopath could come over and murder you. You could wake up and discover that it was all a dream. I mean, there's infinite possibilities of what could happen, and there's absolutely no security to be found. I mean, and like I said, we all know at some point we're going to die. I saw something like the founder of PayPal is hoping to live to 120. Please. Like, people care about this. Or Ray Kurzweil, who's going to live forever, he's going to upload his consciousness into some kind of nano robot. Please. I mean, so what? So what? If you live to be 120, or you upload your consciousness into a nano robot, there's no security. You can still be destroyed. You may have 1 million duplicates of your consciousness that you can upload into gazillions of robots if you want, but the whole thing may disappear in an instant. Right? I mean, You're in the middle of a dream, and then you wake up. And where did the dream go? It's all gone. So all the grasping for security, why? I mean, try grasping for security in your dream. See what that does. It'll probably make your dream stressful. You know, make sure the dream doesn't end. The truth is, we just don't know. We never will know. There's no way to know. So maybe you have a dream, and in the dream you don't know. Total mystery. You know, why the hell am I in high school naked? This is weird, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But then you wake up, and that whole dream disappears, and then you say, now I know it was a dream. But do you really know? How do you know that this isn't a dream? How do you know that you won't wake up from this dream? And then how do you know that you won't wake up from that dream? And then from that dream? Why does there have to be an end? Who said? It's like I say, there's no end to letting go. There's no end to waking up. This is it. This is the dream and waking up. Both. Doesn't have to be one or the other. Life is both and. It includes everything. I mean, haven't you noticed? It's just that we tell these stories that, oh, I can protect myself. I can keep the bad stuff at bay. I don't have to experience negative things. I can only have the nice experiences. Things just get better and better. Every day and every way. But the irony is that in doing so, we overlook the tremendous joy. It's just a simple joy, but a boundless, endless joy of this right now that doesn't need any security. So don't try to protect anything. I'm not saying don't feed yourself or don't defend yourself if somebody lunges at you with a knife. I mean, come on. But those things take care of themselves. The body takes care of all of that, right? I mean, when you're hungry, you eat. If you have food and you're not, in the unfortunate situation of having become conditioned to starve yourself. But everything takes care of itself. It's all taking care of itself. You don't need to manage it. You're not managing it. You can't manage it. You don't know what it is. You don't know what you are. How the hell are you going to manage it? So just give up. I don't mean, somebody asked about despondency. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about giving up, like resignation. I'm a separate self that will be destroyed, but fuck it. I'm just going to lay here until I die. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about give up the whole pretense of knowing. Really. I don't know. That's why you watch the videos. Because I don't know. And I tell you the truth, which is I don't know. And I say it's joyful not to know. If you know, that's death. Static. Life, totally spontaneous. No way to know what's going to happen. What is happening? What is this? Who am I? No way to know. And when you stop looking for an answer, and just allow the discomfort of the question, then you discover what joy it is not to know. What a joy the question is, because life is a question without an answer. It's just joy. Well, that was all the questions. Very low-key, low-key episode. I enjoyed it. I hope you did. And if you have any questions or comments or anything that you'd like to have addressed in the next episode, then send them to me. My email address, as usual, is joeylott@gmail.com. I hope to hear from you if you have something to say. See you next time. Take care.